Hey there, welcome to Her Truth Revealed, Unraveling Our Midlife Era. I'm your host, Wonderful Morrison. This space is for the woman who's done pretending, done hiding, and ready to step fully into her truth. Midlife isn't about fading into the background. It's a time where resilience lights the way and authenticity becomes the loudest voice in the room. In this season of our lives, we are more than just survivors. We are creators, revolutionaries, and unapologetic women rewriting the rules. I've been through my battles, rebuilding from loss, betrayal, and heartache. But here's the truth. Every challenge, every tear, and every setback has led me to this moment of profound transformation. Together, we're going to dive into raw, real conversations that shatter stereotypes, tackle the tough stuff, and embrace the powerful magic that is midlife. So, if you're ready to live this chapter with boldness and joy, hit subscribe. Share this episode with someone who needs to hear it and leave a review so we can keep this revolution going. Ladies, no more masks, no more apologies, just the truth of who we are. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to an episode of Her Truth Revealed, Unraveling Our Midlife Era. And I know you're wondering what's this guy doing on here? Well, I want to, as always, challenge the status quo. And although our midlife era is very centered around women, their crisis was really brought to the general conversation via men, right? All of this talk of they're going through the crisis, so they sell their, normal everyday car for a something
sport car,
car, and they start trading things in is what I am seen as a very popular version of the midlife crisis. But today I want to bring a friend who, it's interesting again, we are online best friends.
Yes.
And we are going to meet in person someday. However,
yes, we are.
I'm bringing Brad on today as my first male, and who knows, maybe my only male guest I'll ever have, because his story, his journey to how he got his podcast at the level, I think, what are you, at the top 2%?
2%, yep.
Powered solely by his desire to help women speak their voice and give them a platform and a space and a safe space. I think that's really important to say, because just because space is there doesn't mean it's a safe space to be. And I've met some incredible women who have now become some of my closest friends through his huge pool of influence. And so I just am so grateful you're here, Brad. Thank you so much for being on the show.
As I was saying before we even got on air, I am so honored, thrilled, and just blessed to be here with you. That you wanted me to be the first male guest on your podcast. Like, what an absolute honor that is for me. So you have filled my heart with that invitation to be here on your platform. As you said, we're besties, and it's, of course, I'm going to say yes to being here, but more so because of the honor of being the first male guest. So thank you so much for this incredible invitation.
Yes. Well, thank you for saying yes and not even being, well, let me think about it.
No.
As you immediately, you were like, absolutely. So thank you for wanting to jump in first.
Of course. Wonderful needs something, I'm there. If I can do it, I'm always there to help and support. And this, giving me this platform to share and the honor, like I said, of being the first male guest, how can I possibly say no?
Oh my gosh. So when we met, you were a speaker at, I think I was at a master class, and you were one of the guest, facilitators for.
I think so.
And you were telling this beautiful story about your grandmother and your mother and your wife and your daughter. And now I would like for you to share that with us, because I suspect that the reason why your platform and your content is very centered around empowering women, there's a story behind this that we need to hear.
Yeah, for sure. My story really begins, I always started out with my photography journey. I'm a photographer a boudoir / women's empowerment photographer. So for me, photography is my first love, my first passion. I fell in love with it in high school. I learned how to shoot on black and white film. And really, I think that's where my journey began with storytelling, because of course, podcasting ties into storytelling and providing that platform. But the photography piece is really where it began for me. I took photography in high school, as I said. I never really wanted to photograph people, though. I had no interest in photographing people. I liked photographing architecture, landscapes, and things like that. And I would create and exhibit and sell my art at art shows around Toronto. And I ended up working in corporate for 12 and a half years. And about 3 or 4 years into my corporate journey, I was tasked with the responsibility of doing the corporate headshots. And that's where I fell in love with photographing people. I loved having that connection and that one-on-one time with people. They learn a bit about who they are and what they do. Then about 3 or 4 years following that, I was introduced through a mutual friend to a boudoir photographer who was based in Florida. Absolutely fell in love with the art form and the message and the mission behind that genre of photography, with what you can help women accomplish in terms of body acceptance, self-love, self-confidence. So I would say that that's really where my journey into women's empowerment began. So that was probably about 13 or 14 years ago now, 12 years ago, because I was about 6 years into my corporate career. So what I did was I started to learn. I mentored with this woman for 6 months, and I knew as soon as I was done my mentorship, that's what I've got to do with my photography business. That lights me up. That fills my soul. I love being able to give that gift of showing a woman herself in a light that she normally doesn't get to see herself in, or has never seen herself in at all. And to be able to give that gift to another human being is so powerful. And for the first 6 years, while I was still in corporate, I was doing shoots for free so I could learn my skill sets around lighting and posing and all of those things. So doing that led into, okay, that's what I've got to do full time. This is where I want to go with my photography business. I have 2 daughters, as you mentioned. They're 23 and 25, and they're a big part of my why. And a big part of that reason being is both my girls were bullied in elementary school. My youngest was bullied by both boys and girls, verbally and physically. My oldest was bullied verbally. And there's also relatability there for me too, because I was also bullied as a kid. So I had an idea of what they were dealing with and going through. But as a parent, it's very difficult to see your kids go through that. You know that, you're a parent.
Yeah.
And so I would say the most difficult part was seeing the effects that it had on the girls carry through with them to the different stages of their lives, from elementary school to high school to now. I still see the effects. And I think it's heartbreaking that anyone should have to go through and deal with that. And when I take a step back and I look at the whole picture through a wider lens, there are millions of women who go through and deal with that on a daily basis. And it affects how they view themselves. They don't love themselves. They don't love their bodies. They don't feel confident in who they are. And I see that all the time in the photography business, photographing these women. Yeah, it's heartbreaking. But to see them when they leave the studio, a completely different woman, there's not enough words to describe how powerful that transformation is. I compare it to watching a caterpillar transform into a butterfly. It's truly beautiful. And what a gift that I get to be part of that transformation. It is so powerful and beautiful that I get to be a part of that and to give that gift to another human being. And so I was 2 years into my photography business full time. And I started to feel...
Are you still working at corporate at this time?
No, I left in 2017 and I jumped into my photography business full time. I was full time in the photography business for about 2 years. And I started to get this feeling that I wanted to reach more people. The impact wasn't enough for me. I wanted to do something more with it. I wanted to impact more people's lives. And I mean, it's great that I get to do this work as a photographer. And I mean, this is my first love, and I get to do this and I get paid for doing this, and I get to have impact in people's lives. That's the trifecta. How it doesn't get any better than that. But I wanted to reach more people. So I started thinking about how I could do that. And I thought, if I took the values, the purpose, the mission of the photography work and somehow translated that or turned that into a podcast where I focus the podcast solely on elevating women and amplifying their voices. I mean, at the time, and even now, I don't know of any other platforms hosted by a man that solely focuses on highlighting women and amplifying their voices. So I thought, this is a perfect way to carve out my own little niche in the podcasting world. So I reached out to 7 or 8 friends of mine, women I had met in my photography journey, and I asked them if they would help me get the platform off the ground by letting me interview them. I explained a little bit about where I wanted to take the platform and what I wanted to do with it. Of course, the vision was in its infancy back then, and thankfully they all agreed. I did the interviews, I created the content, and I was publishing an episode every 2 weeks at the time. And at that same time, my business started to pick up more traction. I was getting busier. I was getting more inquiries and more bookings. And I thought, well, I left corporate for a reason. 12 years of that comfortability, the golden handcuffs, as they say, all of that stuff. So I thought I have to shift my focus back to the business and put all my time and energy there. So I did that. I shelved the podcast idea. I had released those episodes. And at that same time as well, we then fast forward to March of 2020. And while we all know how that played out around the world, it obviously rendered my business inoperable. I couldn't be booking photo shoots in a pandemic. So I thought, well, I've got 2 choices here. I can go through door number 1, where I sit around and commiserate and bitch and complain like over half the world is doing about the situation that we're currently involved in. Or I can go through door number 2 and take advantage of this gift of time, look at it differently, look at it from a different angle as a gift, and take advantage of that gift and use it to put something good out in the world, because God knows we need it. So I thought, I'm going to go through door number 2. I'm going to start reaching out to women on Instagram, explaining about the platform, where I want to go with it, what I want to do with it. And the response was incredible. Women were so happy to hear that a man had created a platform such as this to help elevate women and amplify their voices, that it turned into this thing where the women I was interviewing were saying, Brad, I've got a friend. Brad, I'll connect you. I know someone to be a good guest, to where we now have this incredibly beautiful community, which you're part of and so many other women are a part of. And it has been 4.5, it's been 4.5 years now, 4.5 years of the best years of my life. It has been so incredible because of the opportunities that I've had to meet incredible women like yourself and become friends with some of these women. And just the fact that I get to sit down with each one of these women and share in their journeys and their stories. I've had women on the podcast that have told me stuff that they've never told anyone else. They've never shared with anyone else. And for me, what an honor that is to be in that space and to be able to share in those moments. I often compare it to, I'm in the passenger seat of a car, and the woman who I'm interviewing is taking me on the journey through her life, on the drive through her life. And I get to witness that firsthand. I'm sitting right beside her going through it, and how incredible that is. It's so powerful. I pull inspiration from every single one of these women I interview, and it has been such an amazing journey. I've met some of the most beautiful people I've ever met in my entire life. And my mother and my grandmother are the biggest pieces of all of this. They're the foundation for all of it. I was raised by my mom and my grandmother. My mom left my biological father when I was 10. He was running around on her having an affair. And of course, back in those days, women stayed home to raise the children while the husband was the one working to support the family. So when I look back on that as an adult male, the fact that she had the strength and the courage and the resilience and of course the support of my grandmother to stand up after 15 years of marriage and say, nope, I'm done. I don't have to put up with this shit anymore. I'm taking my boys and we're leaving. That's it. We left with nothing but the clothes on our back. We moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in the same building that my grandparents lived in. My mom slept on a couch. My brother and I shared the bedroom, the 1-bedroom, and she had to get a job after being out of work for over 10 years because she stayed home. She sacrificed to be there with us and to raise us. And when she was at work, my grandmother would step in. So for me, those 2 women are my heart and my soul. I wouldn't be the man I am today without those 2 women. I owe them a debt that is not repayable for all that they sacrificed and did for me and gave me and taught me and how they raised me. And so these 2 women, who are the foundation, along with my wife and my daughters, these 5 women, they are why I do this work. It's my way of saying thank you and giving back to women because of what these 5 women have brought to my life and shown me and taught me. And this is more than just a platform for me, a podcast. It is a global movement and mission. So that's how I ended up here.
I feel like everything you just mentioned reflects why I believe we, part of your community, feel this incredible space of safety. Because I think you have really made it your quest to make sure that the space that you're creating for us is safe. I think it goes back, subconsciously from the whole bullying aspect. Because although you shared like your daughters and yourself were bullied, I think that all of us have some form of bullying. Like for me, it wasn't necessarily at the playground. It was from my
Right.
own father, right? He
Right.
was just the bully of a father.
Yeah.
So I think we feel those certain spaces more in different arenas. I mean, I
Yeah.
know a lot of women who felt that way in their corporate jobs.
Yeah. Absolutely. I've heard
So
many stories. Yeah.
that. So
Mhm.
I feel like that it really solidified for you and how you create your space because so many women do feel really safe in your community. And I know that I'm not just saying that to say it because I've met so many, like I said, a few of them have become my friends. And our common language when it comes to Brad is like, man, that guy.
I just have to say, that's one of the things that lights me up the most about all of this is seeing the connections between women who had no idea who each other were. They didn't know each other from Adam. And now they become friends or now they become
Yeah.
business partners. They're collaborating on projects. That to me is so incredible. And that's a big part of the community is that collaboration and that connection aspect of it. It's so important to me that the members of our community, because it's not my community, it's our community. I couldn't have built any of this without all of you who are part of it, who have agreed to get on board with it. Yes, I came up with the idea for the platform and to start the podcast and to start the platform and grow that community. But without all of you, it doesn't exist. So I owe a great deal of gratitude to all of you too.
I think you nurture it as well. I think you have put a big part in keeping it nurtured and then in that space too, because I've been on other podcasts and I've been in other communities where, it didn't live as long as that
Right.
intention
Yeah.
frame. So it really does come from the leader of that creator, right? Of what you
Yeah.
want it to be. So let's move into this in this portion of it that you are creating now years have gone by, right? You started the platform, the podcast, and now you're evolving into let's take this to the next level and get a stage going and help women really amplify their voice, which is that's a noble freaking pursuit, right? Because women in general don't feel heard or seen and respected. However, there's this like there's this thing where women, we all want to be heard, we want to be seen, but it's also really like, oh my gosh, I want to do it. And now there's a stage. In your experience with the community you've built, the women that we've all become friends now in that connection, what do you think that is about that gets us kind of like where we freeze? Although we want it so desperately, like, yes, first of all, what a great space where we don't have to create the platform ourselves. We don't have to put the stage together ourselves. We don't have to do any of that stuff. We just show up. But why is it even harder? Because it's more simple for us to get up there. Like, tell me a little bit what you've learned through the women you've worked with and talked to.
I think fear is probably the biggest thing. It's still, yes, you say you want it, but when you're given the opportunity, it's like, now I can do it, but I'm still scared.
What do you think we're afraid of though?
I think sharing vulnerably. I think being seen. I think, yes, you say you want to be seen, you want to be heard. I think we all do that. But I think it's actually getting up there and doing. I think worried about, well, what if I don't make sense? Or who wants to hear my story? I don't have a story. That's one of the biggest things that I've heard is, I don't have a story. Yeah, you do. Everybody has a story. And I think that honestly, it's your duty and your responsibility to share that story because that story is someone else's permission slip to stand up and do the same. And that's what we need to do. We need to help each other. We need to lean into each other. That's part of, in my opinion, why we're all here on this planet is to support each other, to lift each other, to cheerlead each other. And we do that by leading by example. For one, if you stand up wonderful and start sharing your story and women in your community, friends of yours see that, they're going to say, oh, okay, well, maybe this isn't so hard. Wonderful did it. Maybe I can reach out to her and ask her to help me or guide me or give me tips or whatever it is. And then I can step into that too. So I think that it's fear of being seen, but I think one of the biggest parts is who wants to hear my story, or I don't have a story. Who am I to share my story? Who the hell am I? Who wants to hear from me?
Yeah. Yeah. I can totally relate to that and understand that. So, there's a TED Talk. There's all these spaces that you
Yep.
can apply and get on stage and all the things and really put yourself out there. Why are you driven to do it? Why are you the one to, walk us through this journey of, okay, it's time to be heard and it's time to be seen?
Because I think this is my purpose here on the planet. This is why I was put here, is to help, be that light, be that beacon, be that lighthouse, whatever it is. I love seeing other people succeed. That sets my soul on fire. To be able to do that for another human being. I mean, I always say that the work I do is in life in general. I think it's like winning the lottery twice for me, because first, you think about all the people that never find their purpose in life, right? There's so many people that go through life stuck in jobs they hate for the rest of their lives.
They have actual movies about it.
There you go. And so for me to have been able to find my purpose, it took me a while to get here. Absolutely. It takes work, it takes time. But for me to have found that, and then secondarily, it has impact. It helps people. It gives back to the world. That's winning the lottery twice. There's nothing better than that, in my opinion. That is what it's all about. That's what we're all here for, is to find our purpose and to have impact in the world, to give back, to help other humans. So for me, to be able to do that, that's why I think that I'm the one to do that, because it's my mission, it's my purpose. I can't not do it. That's why I'm here, is to do that. And I will do that in any way that I can, that I'm able to, that I see fit, that people will benefit from.
I love that you just said that too. Like, you're not here to because you want to do it. It's you have to. Like, it's in you. It's like
Yeah.
the rest of your life doesn't really exist unless you're doing the very thing that is driving you to move forward. And I feel like it's a perfect, like you said earlier, trifecta, because you've created this community for all of us to exist in, where we feel safe, where we feel heard and seen. And then you bring it on the platform of, like, across the land, right? Which is, there is no limit to podcasting in a particular neighborhood that just doesn't have that connection or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's can be heard and seen throughout the world. And then now you're bringing on a next level thing. Tell us how you see that. Like, we can kind of guess in our mind, right? Like, okay, yes, I see this, which all things start from that vision. So I sat down one day and said, oh, I'm going to create a statue and call it 10. Who knew what that was going to be about, right? Or, one day I'm going to have a syndicated show or whatever that form is. Now we see it all in fruition, like Oprah being one of the first Black women on freaking national television interviewing things that we've never seen before. But now we can see it. Give us a picture of what that looks like, though. What does it look like for us to get on this stage that you created that it sort of mimics this platform you already have, where it can reach all corners of the globe?
Everything starts with the seed, right? The food, everything. You have to plant the seed. So the seed was planted for me. It really came from being denied, I think 6 times now for TEDx talks. I've applied for 5 or 6 and haven't gotten one, and that's okay. It'll come. I'll get one eventually. I have no doubt. But I think it really came from the very first rejection. Because I thought for sure I've got this one in the bag, because the person who was running the chapter, it's close here to where I live in Toronto, and he asked me 3 times to resubmit my video portion of my application. I thought, oh, for sure, he wants me on his stage. It's gonna happen. And I got denied. And it really hit home. Like, that hit me hard. It's like, how could I not have gotten this? And I sat with that for a while, and I was upset and dejected. And then I started thinking, you know what? My dad always said, what's meant for you will never go by you. And so that voice rang loud and clear in my head. I thought, okay, well, that's it. So fuck it. I'm going to create my own speaking platform. And it's going to rival TEDx or be bigger than TEDx. It'll take a lot of time and a lot of hard work to get there, but I'm willing to do it because, first of all, TEDx does not allow people to speak about spirituality. And a lot of my community are very spiritual. I would say 95% of the community is spiritual.
Yeah.
So I want people, of course, the focus is going to start with my community. I want them to have a place where they can feel safe and heard and comfortable enough to speak. If that's on their hearts, I want them to be able to speak it. Why shouldn't you be able to speak about that? I don't want any limitations put on people about what their talk can be about. And so for me, that's important to give them that stage. Of course, it's going to start in the virtual space because that's where we got to start. But the goal is to take it to in person and to rival TEDx. That's what I want. That's what I would love to happen. And that's what will happen. I'm speaking it right here, right now. That is what's going to happen. That we will be bigger than TEDx.
Yeah, I think that's the other piece that we were talking about earlier is how often women, especially in this midlife era, where I feel like we're done with the so-called responsibilities of the life. Now we want to create our own life, right? But we're not quite understanding what that looks like or how to do it. We're very concerned about the how we're going to get there. But in reality, if we stop focusing on the how and just freaking do the thing you're talking about, just put it out there and then start gathering the bits and pieces that make it whole. And it's always, there's 8.6 billion people on Earth. So it's not like immediately the minute you say something, everybody's going to know about it because there's just so much noise out there.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something that we can adapt for ourselves individually as women is just be like, all right, let's just do it. But then there's this other piece of sitting on it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this is what we want to do. We're going to do it. What have you noticed? Is there a common denominator between women you've spoken to that do the things they say they're going to do versus the women that want to do, but that fear is just too strong and
Crippling.
too powerful?
Yeah,
is there a
it's
denominator?
Yeah, it's drive. The women that want to succeed will not let anything stop them. I think that the women that are doers that make shit happen realize that it's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
It takes time. It takes work. Look, it's taken me 4.5 years to build a community, and there's still so much more to do. So it doesn't happen overnight. You've got to put in the time. You've got to put in the work and be patient. Patience is the biggest piece, I would say. You have to be patient. And that's hard for a lot of people. I struggle with that. Yeah, I struggle with that too. We all do, I think. But this is another thing I have to say. And I think women struggle with this a hell of a lot more than men is asking for help. That is one of the biggest things is asking for help. It's okay to ask for help. I think that asking for help is seen as a sign of weakness. When I actually look at that, I think it's a sign of strength because you have overcome what society, what standards are about asking for help. Women have been conditioned. No, you can do it yourself. You're a woman. You can do this. You can do this. You can do this. You can do this. But they end up putting themselves on the back burner and forget about themselves. And then it's like they're so busy serving everyone else. No, that's got to change.
And I just want to say kudos to you because when I started my podcast 2 years ago, I didn't know where it was going to go, what it was doing. And I asked you like, hey, what's up? Help me out here. How do I do this? And you were so open to be like, the worst you could say is like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
But you were so open to like giving me like 3 major things of like, here's this and do that. And then when I was ready to walk outside of my warm circle to talk to people, you were like, all right, I'll help you with that. But you're right. I think that's not as common. It just, I think I just picked that up because I'd been a business owner for so long that if you don't ask for help, you will drown. So
yeah, of course you will. You can't do it alone. It's impossible.
But it is sort of part of our endearing visual representation when we do see a woman that can do it all. Like she's a single mom, she's doing the thing, she's da-da-da-da, she looks great, right? So she's like this, our ideal. Oh my gosh, she's a size 6, she has 3 kids, she's running a full-time gig, and she has a side hustle, and she's dating all.
But you don't know what goes on behind the scenes, though.
Right.
That's the thing.
But that's a false view.
Yes, of course it is
a perfection. And she doesn't, and God forbid she ever asks for help, and she shows up at all the kids' events and things like that. And
or talks about the struggles that she goes through to maintain.
Shift it.
Yeah.
Right? Like women who look like who have it together really have to start talking about, no.
Yeah.
I really believe that now, because we're always looking for the other women that are struggling on the struggle bus too. But really, the women who have it together probably have a lot more weight because they don't ask for support. They don't have a system of people surrounding them. So that's an interesting, I mean, I just kind of thought about that in my
it's true.
personal experience.
It is. It's so true. I think we need, this is it, right? Conversation is where it all starts. Conversation, in my opinion, is the catalyst for change. If we don't talk about it, people don't know that you're struggling. People don't understand. People see this perfect image that you've created and think, oh, she's got her shit together. She doesn't need help with anything. Meanwhile, she's dying inside, struggling.
Right.
But she won't talk about it because then she looks weak. Or this is, I was conditioned not to ask for. Yes, exactly.
Judgment Day comes on and it's like, oh, how is she perfect and not perfect? That's not okay. And really, it's all okay. Because I think okay, here's another thing. So you come across women who are like, maybe I don't know. Do I have a story to tell? Maybe this is a story to tell. Okay. I will say not everybody is appealing to listen to. That's just the thing, right? There's podcasts that I find the titles are interesting, but they're not their voice or their cadence or how they tell the stories, like, holy moly, this is going to take forever. Do you believe that is also, because people don't talk about that either. They're like, okay, we're going to help you get on stage, but there's these intricacies. There's these little parts that make you a storyteller that enhances maybe something, or maybe helps you cultivate something you don't got going on.
Yeah.
So is that part of the system? Like, let's talk a little bit more about that in terms of seeing your platform.
Yeah. I mean, I think anybody can learn that. I think it can be taught. And those that have never been on podcasts or don't know how to speak, have never spoken publicly, they need help. They need coaching. Because I really believe that everyone does have a story. I wholeheartedly believe that. Some people need more help than others. That's all. And that's part of what I do, is coaching people how to be good guests, coaching people that want to start their own podcast. Because again, I think that's one of the biggest things is a lot of people have no clue where to begin with both sides of it, with being a guest and starting their own podcast. They have no clue where to start. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to help with that. You can't expect, everyone's at different levels, right? So everyone needs different amounts of help. But I do think that everybody has the ability to tell their story. It's just they need guidance, they need support, they need help to flesh that story out. You're right. There are people who you sit and listen, it's like, oh my God, you're droning on. This sounds terrible, or it's monotone, or there's no emotion there. These are things that can be taught, I believe.
Because I think a majority is afraid. One of the things before I even came near, I didn't come into the world seeking out like, ooh, let's find a public stage. If it was, I'd already been on those, right? That wasn't where I was headed. But what was fascinating to me was always how people spoke. Like, I love watching preachers. Preachers have such a charisma about them on stage that you're just like, wow. The Holy Spirit.
They hold the audience in the palm of their hand.
Yes. So it's really fascinating to me. And then there's some world leaders that you're like, how did you get on that stage? Right? It's just like, you are in charge of thousands and millions of people, and I cannot listen to your voice once.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like one of the things that I've really picked up from you when you're so adamant about everybody has a story
Uh-huh.
I think there's also that piece where however naturally you can communicate it,
Mhm.
right? In your own way, because the women I've met through you, all different walks of life, all
Mhm.
different spaces that they're communicating out to the
Yeah.
world, but all really fascinating in how they are telling their story and all different though.
Yeah.
Right. So I
I
feel like that's something
never
we need to talk about.
Yeah. I never ever, ever thought of myself as a speaker. Never. I never in a million years dreamed I would ever have a podcast. I hated the sound of my own voice. I could not stand listening to my voice. I hated it. Now it's tolerable. I can listen to it, but I never dreamed. I mean, the first time I ever spoke publicly was at my brother's wedding as the best man, and I was scared shitless for weeks leading up to it. Weeks. I was nervous as hell. My stomach was doing somersaults, and I did it. I had no choice. I had to do it. I couldn't back out.
Right. Right.
But
And it's your
it gets,
brother.
yeah. But I think that an important thing to remember is that the more that you do something, whether it's speaking, whether it's learning a new skill, the more that you work at it, the more you practice, the more you do it, the better you'll get. That's not saying you're going to be an expert at all of these different things. And maybe you focus on one. Maybe it's being visible. Maybe it's going live on Facebook. You don't know how many people I've heard so many people, I can't go live. No way. What if I screw up? What if I don't make sense? That's a real struggle for
Yeah.
so many people. I can't do a live. No way. Yeah, you can. You just have to practice it. Start small. Start within your community first. Start with the people that know you,
Agreed.
right?
Yeah.
Then you get
For
more
sure.
comfortable. You build that comfort. You build that skill set. It takes time. It takes practice. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes time.
So tell us a little bit about presence. So currently, right? I mean, I grew up in an era where online was like, what? You did everything live in person. You
Yeah.
used to do
Yeah.
like in school, you'd have to do a whole presentation in front of
Speeches and oh yeah.
thing. Well, now you can do things online, but it's still as nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people are, oh, is it the light? Like one of the questions I asked you, I'm like, well, what about a camera or a microphone? And I remember you were like, wouldn't even answer because it's like, just do it. Right.
Mhm.
Because at some point you'll learn on your own what
Mhm.
types of things. And so much of our electronic devices are so capable. Like they could take us to the moon if we wanted it to.
Yeah.
And so you were just kind of like, do whatever. But what I've also learned throughout watching a lot of your podcasts and your lives is this presence thing. There's a balance of authenticity and
Mhm.
preparation. So what, like one of the things, again, one of the first things you ever told me was like, which I don't think anybody would even think about is when you're doing a podcast interview, make sure your dogs are put away,
Yeah.
right? Make sure there's a sign on your door that says you're in an interview. No one really thinks about that because it's like, hey, I'm just chatting it up. But the presence of how it goes on makes a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you're recording, you have to be in a quiet environment that there are no disturbances. I mean, I don't know. With the live stuff, Facebook Lives, I always say done is better than perfect. People will wait for that. Oh, I don't feel ready yet. If you're waiting, you're never going to feel ready. Just jump in and do it. If you screw up, who cares? No one knows what you're going to say except you.
Right.
So, and what I would do is if I screw up, if I fumble words or whatever, I'd make a joke. I'd laugh at myself. I'd poke fun at myself. That makes it a little bit lighter. And it also gives people something to laugh about. Bring humor into it. That always helps. Humor brings levity. Bring humor into it. But going back to the podcasting thing and the environment and presence, and yeah, you have to be mindful of where you're recording because you don't want all that background noise when you're recording an interview. You don't want people walking in and talking or your dog barking or your cat meowing or whatever, your bird chirping, whatever it is. Be mindful. You have to,
Mhm.
for sure.
Well, I think that those are little itty bitty things that the assumption is presence is, oh, well, I got to comb my hair. There's been plenty of people who've been extremely visible with the messy bun, right? That was
Yeah.
kind of a thing. So I think the other thing that you really bring to the table is this space called authenticity. So tell us a little bit what that means for you in this audience that you're creating for this platform where we are being seen and heard. What does it mean? What is authenticity?
I think it's just being who you are here to be. Be yourself. Don't try to be someone else. Be who you're naturally here to be. That's what resonates with people. When you're open and honest and vulnerable and who you really are, people resonate with that. That's what you need to do. That's what you want to do. That's how you relate to your audience. You want to be relatable. That is probably one of the most important things, is being relatable to your audience so that they can connect with you. They can see Brad. Well, I don't have hair, so I can't say Brad didn't brush his hair, but you know what I mean? Like that type of thing, that they can relate to you. You speak how you speak. It doesn't have to be polished and perfect. It doesn't have to. There are, of course, I won't say there are environments that, yes, you have to be presentable. Of course you do. If you're getting on stage to do a TEDx talk, you don't want to go up there with looking all disheveled and like an unmade bed. You want to be presentable because you're speaking in front of people. You know, if you are who you authentically are, speaking how you really, don't try and project something that you're not. Just be who you are. Be who you truly are, and that's what will resonate with people. Don't create this false presence. Be who you're meant to be.
Too, I think there's also this like thing of like, but it's got to be professional. Being too professional also takes away from that level of authenticity.
Yes, for sure.
Right?
Agreed, 100%. Yeah,
So I just that's a piece too.
Be presentable, and you don't have to be all stiff and proper. And if you let a cuss word fly, and if that's who you are, then do it.
But also, if you're stiff and proper, that's who you are too, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's who you are.
That as well. So
Sure,
I
absolutely.
think that I love how you're very open to. We're not. I think there's always this assumption that when we're going to get in speaking platforms, we're going to do podcasts. It's like everybody in the world is going to hear it.
No.
So I think that's another thing. Give us, when you first started your podcast, did you have an idea like who was going to listen, or did you even care if anybody?
No, I honestly,
I
I honestly, I didn't give it any forethought at all. I just jumped in. I mean, I had the technical background, audio production, video, all of that stuff, but I had no clue about interviewing people, not a clue. I just did it. I joke about this all the time. I have never gone back and listened to my first 8 interviews. I've not. And I think I would probably cringe if I did. And I should probably do that one day, because I do this. It's funny. I talk about this with my photography work as well. I've gone back and looked at images that I captured over 20 years ago. And I think, oh my God, how did I possibly think that was good? How did I think that this was a good photograph? But at the time, that was good to me. I've grown. I've improved my skill set. So it's okay. I think it gives us a sense of where we came from when we're able to do that. When we go back and look at past stuff that we've done, gives us a sense of where we came from and how far we've come. And that's good. That's a good reminder. I think that keeps us grounded. I think, and I want to say that with the whole presenting yourself, going live, doing podcast interviews, all of that stuff, I think that, just escaped it, vanished. Where was I going with this? Oh, fear. Having a bit of fear is good, because I think, and I say this all the time with my photography work, I've been shooting for almost 40 years now, and I still get nervous before a photo shoot. And I think that's a good thing, because one, it keeps me grounded. I don't walk into a situation saying, oh, I got this. This is no problem. I got this all figured. I can do this. No, I think that fear, a little bit of fear, there's fear, and then there's crippling fear, right? Where you don't do anything, you don't move forward with it. But I think fear is a good thing. I got off on a tangent from what you asked me.
No, but I think that's good, because I think, fear is a subject that often comes up, especially in this midlife space. And, people say, oh, midlife is, maybe I'm not in that because it's not my age. I don't think it's an age thing, people.
No.
I think midlife is a transitional thing, right? And it
Yep.
just happens to like get our best attention in the later years of our life. I think
Yeah.
it was been happening in our 20s and our 30s, but we just aren't paying attention as much as we are closer into our 40s and things like that. And I think that fear becomes the thing that shows it rearing its head
Yeah.
is because prior to that, we can sort of subside that fear and be like, okay, but I got to get a job. Okay, I got to pay the
Mhm.
bills. Okay.
Yeah.
But now we're at the age where it's like the responsibilities are different. So that fear really pops up and it becomes more about us. Like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, what?
We're our biggest hurdles.
Yeah.
We are our
Well,
biggest
things,
hurdle.
but I have to show up.
No one else is going to do it for you.
Right. Because prior to that, it was just the doing. We were just
Yeah.
doing a lot of doing. And then now it's the doing matched with the being that makes it really like, is this a thing?
Yeah.
And so I think what you do is you're bringing women to the forefront in a way that, okay, here's another thing I want to ask. Maybe it's a little sensitive, maybe it's not,
Mm.
but what is it about males bringing to the forefront female things? Like, for instance, male hairdressers make more money than female hairdressers.
Do they?
No, that's still true, but it was for a long time,
Huh.
right? Like
Okay.
Vidal Sassoon, okay, I'm totally aging myself, Paul Mitchell, all of these big giant names, male names. So what is it that we women want to be sort of highlighted by males? What is that? Is it a need for validation from
I think that's
others?
part of
Or what
it,
do you think
but
it
I
is?
think that's changing now, though. I think that's shifting
Yeah.
because women are leading and showing women what is possible. But I think the patriarchy's played a big part in that. Think that, yeah, then when it was going, I think validation, looking for that validation from others. And we all do that. We all look for validation, external validation. But we need to remember that it all starts here within us. That's where we need to look and start, is here inside of us. We all have work to do. We all have inner work to do. And I think that there are people, I've done it too, seek validation. Like, again, with my photography work, I was always worried about putting it out there. What's so-and-so going to think, or what are people going to say? And so it stopped me from doing it for a period of time. So I think that, yeah, it's validation, the patriarchy, I think. But again, I think we're seeing a shift, which is needed. And it's a permission slip for other women to stand up and say, hey, look at Wonderful. She's a successful businesswoman. She's been running businesses. She's run multiple businesses very successfully. It is possible. So I think mentorship is needed a lot.
That's a good one.
I think mentorship is needed to show others.
And when we first started to get to know each other, and the more that I learned about what you do in the
Empowerography.
my gosh, yes, it's a tongue twister. That thing, but I think that's what I noticed too. That you really bring to the table without ever really putting it out there. Like, I'm a mentor. Is you are an incredible space for that mentorship.
Thank you.
For
I love to do that. I love to
really
help
step
people.
up into being who they are, right? And it's sort of like meeting themselves through you in that validation of like, you've got a story to tell.
I think mentorship is very important. It's huge. It's funny. I went back. So when again, I'm going back to my photography stuff because that's where my entrepreneurial journey started. But when I first jumped into photography full time, struggled so much with self-confidence, and I still do. I'm going to be completely honest here. I still struggle with it, of course, but I struggled a lot with competition mindset, and also I was of the mindset where this is about me. What do I get out of this? So I was going into companies for potential collaboration opportunities as a photographer to cross promote with other businesses. And I was going in with the mindset of, what benefit would this be to me? What am I going to get out of this? And I got a mentor, and it was one of the best things I ever did, because he showed me and taught me that you cannot go in with that mindset because you're setting yourself up for failure. That you have to go in with the mindset of what can I bring to the table for you? How can I help you? How can I be in and of service to you? I'm telling you, that changed my trajectory. It changed my mindset, and that helped so much. When I got into and stepped into that mindset because of that mentor, I actually went back to him, I think it was back in the summer of this year. And I left corporate in 2017. So we're talking like, I think I was probably a year and a half into my entrepreneurial journey. So we're going back 6 years. And I went back to him this summer and I said, thank you for what you did for me. You have no idea how much you changed my trajectory, how much you helped change my mindset with that simple little thing, that tiny little tweak in mindset shifted everything for me. That shifted my competition mindset, everything. And again, that's not to say that I still don't struggle with these things from time to time, because I think that as we go through this entrepreneurial journey, there are going to be different struggles that come up. And some of those same ones will come up. But I think having gone through them previously in different iterations, we gather the tools to learn how to turn the volume down much quicker than when we first encountered it. And that's what it's all about. It's a learning journey. We're constantly learning and growing and expanding and evolving as entrepreneurs, as human beings, knowing that I would say mentorship is huge, because that, just from my own personal experience, that changed everything for me. So much for me.
I agree. That's, as a starting out business owner in our teams, mentorship, I think, is what changed the game for us. And I feel like we were lucky enough and blessed enough to have mentorship right out the gate.
Yeah.
Like the minute we got into the business, and it really sustained us for long term. So,
but see, hold on 1 second.
Go ahead.
This also speaks to asking for help, because you have to ask for a mentor. You have to seek a mentor out. It all ties back into that asking for help piece. Anyway, sorry, I just had to say that.
Yeah, I agree, because it doesn't poof out of us.
No.
We were looking. So that's a good point to make. Okay, as we're getting closer to the end here, I want to ask a question. What if you're walking down the street one day in your lovely little city called Toronto, and you walk into a cafe and you see 25-year-old Brad, and you're like compelled to tell 25-year-old Brad something that will set him up for where you're at right now, that he'd actually listen to, though, right? Because I think that's another piece, is like, just because you go up to your 25-year-old self doesn't mean they're actually going to listen. Like, I've thought about this plenty of times for me, and it always has to start out with like, those shoes and that outfit when you're 40 is going to change. So that's what I know about me to be true. I wouldn't listen if it was like, hey, girl, listen, got to get your shit together. I'd be like, hey, I'm already together. So my 25-year-old self would listen if it was about my shoes and outfit.
I was a plain t-shirt and jeans guy, so nothing would have changed anyways. I would say probably be patient and invest in yourself. Do the self-work and invest in yourself. Those three things, hands down, those are the three things I would tell my 25-year-old self: is be patient. It takes time. Invest in yourself and do the self-work.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really, really good one. I really like that, because that's what I'm saying. You'd have to follow up with that and be like, okay,
Yeah.
shoes in the outfit. And then listen, you should definitely sign up for that thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to set you up for success here. Put in the work, do the self-development, learn as much as you can.
Yeah. All right. One last little piece is, what do you think your message is to the world?
Don't wait for tomorrow. Do it today. Don't put off. Don't wait for the perfect time. It will never come. Step into it, own your shit, and do it.
Yeah.
And ask for help.
Well, folks, as you hear it here, do it, get on it, own it, is Brad's message.
Ask for help.
And ask for help. Well, and that's what I truly believe that you are an incredible mentor
Thank
and you create incredible space for women to be seen and heard. And I think if this conversation lit something up in you and you're like, oh, I'm ready, this is the time. There is no
Yeah.
other time. This is the time. And I don't put people, yes, there's new people that I meet when I interview them and stuff, but I don't really ever put people that I don't believe in my gut is here to enhance the audience and myself. Really, it's really, for me, is what it's more about. But I am really intuitionally driven to connect with people. And so I trust Brad in that space. So if this is something that is something you've been on the fence about and you feel a little nudge, we'll have all of Brad's information for you to get in touch with him, and also the community.
Yeah. I want to grow the community.
But he's like, come on in.
Yeah, there's room for everybody. Absolutely. There's always room for everybody. I want to bring as many people in because, again, it ties into that whole community. We can't do it alone. So the more people we get on board with the mission, with the community, it's a win-win-win for everybody. Plus, you get to meet amazing, kick-ass women in the community. So why wouldn't you want to join?
You know so many. So thank you again for being here. Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe, review. Only 5 stars though. If you got nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all.
That's right.
My motto is. And I'm really, really looking forward to see your vision unfold, Brad. Thank you for being my friend. Until next time, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with me on today's journey. If you felt something resonate, if you saw yourself in this conversation, please take a moment to subscribe. Share it with a friend who needs this space and leave a review. It helps others find us, and it's a small way you can be a part of this powerful movement. Ladies, this isn't just a podcast. It's a community, a revolution, a place where midlife women come together to embrace our hard-earned wisdom and vibrant truth. So thank you for being part of this. Remember, it's time. It's time to step into our truth. No more holding back. Midlife is ours to own, and it's only getting started. So, until next time, take a breath, honor your journey, and live with audacity, courage, and joy. This is our time, our truth, unraveled, revealed, and celebrated.